The New York Jets recently snapped a 4-game losing streak with a 32-25 victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars, a game in which quarterback Aaron Rodgers delivered one of his most impressive performances of the season. Rodgers threw for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns without committing a single turnover. Following the win, he appeared again on ESPN's The Pat McAfee Show, where he took the opportunity to address his growing frustration with sports media, particularly in how pundits and analysts have been covering his career and statements. During his appearance, Rodgers criticized the evolving role of sports media, suggesting that some pundits, who he feels were once solely focused on analysis, have now adopted a celebrity-like status of their own. He took issue with what he described as unfounded or asinine opinions being shared by media personalities, and accused them of turning their opinions into the story rather than focusing on the athletes themselves. Rodgers voiced that many of these commentators seem more concerned with their public image and fame than with providing genuine analysis or respecting the athletes they discuss. ESPN's NFL analyst Ryan Clark, a former NFL veteran with 13 years of experience, responded to Rodgers' remarks on the network's First Take show last Friday. Clark took aim at Rodgers, calling him a fraud, tone-deaf, and unaware. He argued that Rodgers was guilty of doing exactly what he was accusing others of, being paid to say asinine things for public attention. Clark suggested that Rodgers' criticisms were contradictory, as he himself profits from similar media appearances, positioning himself as a celebrity commentator while also criticizing others for doing the same. Rodgers didn't let Clark's remarks slide. On the Pat McAfee Show the following Tuesday, he spent an hour discussing the Jets' win, the NFL MVP race, the college football playoff, and even his Netflix documentary, but it was his direct response to Clark that garnered the most attention. As McAfee began to wrap up the segment, Rodgers interrupted him, saying, "I'm not done," signaling that he had something more to add. He then launched into what he called a quick PSA reminder regarding media commentary, specifically addressing the vaccination status of those who criticize him. Rodgers suggested that any media personality offering opinions about him should first disclose their vaccination status, referencing how the media's focus on COVID-19 and vaccines had impacted public discourse. He remarked that if a commentator is captured by the multi-million-dollar propaganda skyhawk, meaning influenced by corporate media or the pharmaceutical industry, then understanding their vaccination status would help people interpret their opinions properly. He continued, "Just so everybody knows where you're coming from, everybody knows, okay, cool, you're twice vaccinated with Moderna with 3 booster shots, and then say what you want to say, whatever." While Rodgers did not directly name anyone in particular, his comments seemed to be aimed at those, like Clark, who have criticized him. His focus on vaccination status, which he pointed out was heavily discussed during the COVID-19 years, seemed to serve as a critique of how these commentators might be influenced by factors beyond pure analysis or sports knowledge. He suggested that, by openly disclosing their vaccination status, media personalities could provide context for their opinions, allowing the public to better understand the motivations behind their criticisms. Rodgers also referenced Clark's recent appearance on First Take, noting that Clark wore a gold lapel pin with his initials, RC. He humorously added that along with this lapel pin, Clark should also display his vaccination status so that people could better understand the lens through which his opinions were formed. Rodgers went on to assert that media members in general should include their vaccination status in their biographies when appearing on air, as it was a key part of their public persona during the pandemic years. McAfee and co-host AJ Hawk seemed to enjoy the back and forth, with McAfee suggesting that Rodgers' comments could provide clarity for those who are wondering where these opinions are coming from. Rodgers emphasized that he was indifferent to the media's opinions, saying, "I couldn't give two expletives about it," but he wanted to ensure that people knew the full context of those making critical statements about him. Rodgers further elaborated that many media figures would eventually fade into obscurity. He stated, "Most of you, nobody remembers your career," implying that even though sports analysts may hold influential positions now, they will not retain their relevance forever. Rodgers' message seemed to be that he, unlike those in the media, would not need to cling to television appearances for relevance after his career ends. He urged media figures to be humble in their commentary, reminding them that athletes like him are the ones who have truly earned their place in the public eye through their athletic achievements. As the conversation wound down, McAfee clarified the reports about his company paying Rodgers for his appearances on the show. He emphasized that he felt obligated to compensate Rodgers for his time and the value he brought to the show, explaining that the arrangement was not meant to be controversial. Rodgers echoed this sentiment, asserting that he had not received any compensation this year for his appearances and that McAfee's offer was simply a reflection of the value he provided. In response to Rodgers' latest comments, Clark took to social media to express his thoughts. He seemed amused by Rodgers' remarks, particularly Rodgers' playful jab at the lapel pin. Clark acknowledged that he didn't know much about the vaccination issue but found the ongoing exchange interesting. He clarified that he had no issue with McAfee's show or paying Rodgers for his appearances, but his problem with Rodgers was rooted in what he saw as hypocrisy. Clark suggested that Rodgers was behaving in much the same way as the media figures he criticized, being paid to share opinions for the public's consumption. Clark also stated that he had no ill will towards McAfee and only wanted to clear up rumors of jealousy or any negative comments directed at him. He concluded by promoting his own podcast, The Pivot Podcast, which is nominated for a 2024 Sports Emmy in the Outstanding Hosted Edited Series category, signaling that he too was focused on building his own media career. This exchange between Rodgers and Clark highlights the ongoing tension between athletes and the media, with both sides asserting their right to express opinions while also accusing the other of hypocrisy. Rodgers' remarks, especially his focus on vaccination status, further complicate the already charged discourse around sports commentary, the media's influence, and athletes' roles in the public conversation.